Local history, local culture, local events, your community. This is the Joe Kelly Show.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about the Irish, and that's a good thing because Mike Hoke's our guest, and Mike is very involved with the Irish. He's done at the Irish Cultural Center down on Columbia Street, and he is one of the people that's involved with the programming that goes on down there. And there's a lot of programming that's been held, and there's a lot of programming upcoming. We'll talk about that, amongst other things. But first, we're going to say welcome. Good to see you again, Mike.
Good to see you, Joe.
Thanks. The Irish Cultural Center, for those who don't know, is on Columbia Street, right at where all the streets come into Varick, and I don't know what all the other streets are in there, but there's 5 streets, I think, that come into play there.
Yeah, there's 4, which is why they call it the 5 points.
And the and upstairs is the Irish Cultural Center and a museum, and that's where your programs are. Downstairs is the 5 Points Pub. What goes on upstairs?
What goes on upstairs is we are in the first stages of having the museum put together, and there is a display up there currently on the Great Hunger that took place in Ireland in the mid 1800s.
The potato famine.
The potato famine. And there is a display of some of the organizations that have contributed to the Irish community, such as the Ancient Order of Hibernians, Crave Dugan O'Looney, both the LAOH and the Men's AOH. And I think there is a display of artifacts from the old St. Patrick's Church up there.
And the Irish Cultural Center actually sits on what used to be the St. Patrick's Church.
Exactly. And
I think there's some stones, maybe the cornerstone that's out front of the building.
The cornerstone that sits out on the front, as you're looking at the building from Columbia Street, it would be right there on the corner.
Yeah.
Columbia Street, and I think that's Huntington.
Huntington, yeah. And you used to have St. Anthony's across, I think that's St. Anthony, across the street, kitty corner, and then St. Patrick's. Hard to believe, 2 Catholic church right across the street from one another.
Yes, it was St. Joe's.
St. Joe's, I'm sorry.
St. Joseph's, yes.
Yeah, St. Joseph.
So now they call it St. Joseph, St. Patrick's.
Yeah, or except on St. Patrick's Day, then it's St. Patrick's, St. Joseph's, right?
All the churches are St. Patrick's Church.
Yeah. The Irish Cultural Center really, like any cultural center, it gives people of that nationality a place to go. You just mentioned a bunch of them, and it gives them an opportunity to exploit their history.
Exactly. We have a great reference library up there that is accessible to folks. Everybody is welcome to come to any of our programs, and people are always welcome to come up and take a look around the museum and such.
I'm glad you made that point, Mike, because Irish Cultural Center, it's not just for the Irish, it's for the public.
No, it's for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about a new program, an upcoming program that you were telling me about before the show. And that's going to be kicking off. The name of the program is Lunch and Learn.
Yes.
And when's that kicking off, and what's that all about?
That's kicking off on the second Wednesday of July. I think it'll be July the 11th.
I'll check the calendar.
Let's check the calendar. We'll have some press coming out very shortly about that, and we'll do that we're going to try to do that every month. And what it entails is you come to the programs at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then have a little bit of lunch afterwards.
Mm-hmm. What kind of programs are you going to do? What kind of learning is there going to be?
Well, there's going to be a repeat of some of the programs we do in the evenings. We do some introductory Irish words nothing heavy, nothing that you have to memorize, but Irish words that became part of the English language.
Such as?
Well, a great one is smithereens, which means smidrini in Irish, which means little bitty pieces.
Smithereens.
So smithereens came from that, or sláinte, which means, or slán, which means goodbye, and that developed into so long, which means the same thing, farewell.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you speak Gaelic?
I'm a very beginner learner. Yes.
That's a tough language, isn't it?
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's got a great combination of vowels and consonants that you don't come across too often.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to be in the Lunch and Learn. You're going to be doing a program probably because you've done some in the past with Tony O'Flynn.
I don't know if we'll do any with Tony O'Flynn with that at that time of day.
No, I meant the ones that you've done in the past.
Oh, the ones we've done in the past. Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Tell people who Tony O'Flynn is.
Well, Tony O'Flynn is he's a professor of Irish literature and Irish language at Mary Immaculate College in Limerick, Ireland. I think he works out of the Turles campus, and he's an interesting guy. He recently completed his thesis on his doctoral thesis on a farmer poet named Patrick Condon, who, by the way, lived in the Deerfield area, probably about 1 mile north of here as the crow flies.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about Patrick Condon in the second segment, but Tony O'Flynn, you get him on Zoom, right? And
yes.
So he talks to the people down at the Irish Cultural Center. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Zoom, nobody heard of Zoom until about 2019.
Yeah. Are there going to be more of those kinds of things, do you think, down at the Irish Cultural Center?
We hope so. We haven't booked any other distance ones this year. But for example, we did have last year. Now the name of the guy escapes me, but he was involved with the Irish hunger strikers at one time, and he's prohibited from coming to the United States or Canada. Mm-hmm. And we had him via Zoom last April.
All right, I missed that one. I bet you that was interesting.
No, that was good.
Yeah. We're going to take a short break. Mike Hoke's our guest. We're talking about the Irish Cultural Center and Irish history and a bunch of other stuff. When we come back, we'll talk about a man that Mike has done a lot of research into, Patrick Condon. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Mike Hoke's our guest. We're talking about the Irish Cultural Center and Irish history. And I just dropped my notes, but that's okay. I don't need them. The Lunch and Learn that we were talking about before the break, Mike, July 10th, a Wednesday. It'll be the kickoff, and it includes lunch.
Yes.
And have you set a price on this yet?
Right now, the price has been set at $20. Mm-hmm. So that includes a talk. We don't charge for a lot of our talks unless we have to bring in a special speaker from outside that have to cover travel costs and things like that. Mm-hmm. But that includes the talk and lunch, tax and gratuity, I believe. So we've got that set up with the manager there.
And the first one is going to be on Patrick Condon, is that right?
First one is going to be on Patrick Condon.
All right, let's tell people who Patrick Condon was.
Okay, Patrick Condon was a poet that emigrated from County Cork in Ireland, a little village called Ballymakota. He immigrated to the United States about 1825, so we're coming up on the 200th anniversary of his coming over here. He couldn't make a very good living as a farmer over there due to the proximity of his farm near the sea, and there was some things that were happening with the British, of course, government and the landlords confiscating farms for bad for not paying rents, and he was a tenant farmer. So he decided to move himself and his young family over here to the United States. He had relatives in the Deerfield area, and it was quite a task because the man was nearly 50 years old when he decided to do this. So it was a very, you can imagine the way you had to get there in 1825.
Yeah. Just the boat ride, how long did that take?
A 6 to 8 week boat ride was the estimate for that.
Mm-hmm. Where'd they come in through, Mike?
They came in through Quebec. So then they had to sail up the St. Lawrence River to a point probably either in Ogdensburg or Watertown, and then come down through that Black River Valley into the Utica area.
And he settled in Deerfield because it was near a church. Is that one of the reasons?
That was one of the reasons. One of the other ones, though, was he had already had relatives that had settled here. His first cousins had already settled here in this Deerfield area.
Mm-hmm. And Patrick Condon, it's just a miraculous kind of thing for anybody to cross the ocean in those years to get to this country. It made it even tougher for him. He couldn't speak English.
He did not speak English. I don't know. I imagine he had an understanding of it, but he was adamant about the Irish language, which is why he wrote his poetry and stuff. He didn't have a formal education, but he was coached by the neighbors around him. Some were school teachers, the parish clergy coached him in the Irish language and helped him develop his skills. And it was at a time when the language was being persecuted over there. There was quite a few people still speaking it, 200 years ago, but it had gone down after that, especially during the famine years when there was a mass exodus of Irish here to the United States.
I always remember, Mike, you bring it to my mind, I was in Dublin many years ago, and on a dock there, and I wish I could remember what dock it was, but there's statues of people standing there, and they're just bones,
Yes.
And it drives home the point of how bad that was and why people had to get out of there.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yes, I know that you see pictures of that statue all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Patrick Condon left Ireland before that happened, but he stayed in touch with neighbors and friends through his letters and the letters going back and forth to his friends and relatives in Ballymakota.
And the poems that he wrote.
And the poems.
And that's what makes him famous over there, right? Those letters that he sent from here.
The letters that he sent from here, it made him famous because there were very few letters being sent back and forth at that period of time in the Irish language. And it gave those folks that received the letters on the Irish side a sense of what was happening in a language that they could understand. And also, when they wrote back to him, he insisted that they write back in Irish. So I think he could. I think he read a little bit of English, but he insisted that they write back in Irish so that he could, know what was going on in the country. And he spoke a little bit about that too in some of his letters going back and forth, especially during the famine time.
And Professor Tony O'Flynn, who you mentioned earlier, feels that Patrick Condon was important enough to write that Tony O'Flynn wrote his thesis on him, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
have you read any of that thesis?
just the summary, the executive summary of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. I can't quote it word for word now, but it's very interesting. And I've read a lot about Patrick Condon in general from other sources as well.
Mm-hmm. How does he pronounce how is that name pronounced in Gaelic?
Pádraig Cúndún.
Mm-hmm. And on his grave marker, it's Patrick Condon?
It is Patrick Condon.
Yeah. And this year, a bunch of people from the Irish Community Cultural Center went over to the grave.
Yes, we did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we placed some shamrocks on his headstone.
Mm-hmm. You're trying to keep his memory alive, right?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, it's worth doing. He's an important. His poetry was not on the same scale as a Yeats, but it was written for the everyday working man to understand.
Mm-hmm. When we come back, we ought to tell people a little bit about your musical work in the area, which is quite extensive. And I also should mention that you and Chris, your wife, were this year's Grand Marshals.
Grand Marshals, yes.
I think that's the first time in our local history that there's been co-Grand Marshals. Am I right?
I believe you're correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good experience for you?
Oh, it was fun.
Yeah, good. If it's not fun, you're not doing it right.
Right.
Mike Hoke's our guest. Short break, right back. And welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Mike Hoke's our guest. Mike and his wife, Chris, were Grand Marshals of this year's St. Patrick's Day Parade and are very much involved there as Cultural Center. And one of the treats of going down to one of your programs is Chris makes soda bread for for those that attend. The Lunch and Learn kicks off at July 10th. That'll be your first one. You're going to do one with on Patrick Condon.
Correct.
And we got a chance. It was nice of you to invite me to go up to Patrick Condon's farm, which is owned now by another family.
Yes.
But you pointed out where the farm was. What size farm did he have?
I believe it was 25 acres was his total property size.
It must have been a tough row to hoe.
Oh, when you think about that, back then traveling, and he also worked on the Erie Canal.
I want to talk about that in a minute.
And so when you think about traveling that road from Utica, Walker Road from Utica to the top of Deerfield Hills, now it's curvy and hilly, but you can only imagine what it would have been like in the mid-1800s.
In a horse and carriage?
With a horse and carriage.
He went to church up there. The church, the name I forget, and the church is gone now.
The church is gone. We believe though he did attend historic Old St. John's at first, because that church, historic Old St. John's, was built prior to the Church of the Holy Cross.
And that's where.
And that's which was up on Bell Hill, and that's long gone now.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think that church, I think the last mass there was 1867, I believe, 10 years after Patrick Condon
Is there any
died.
foundation left, or is there anything that shows where it was, Mike?
We don't know that yet. We know that there was a cemetery there, and according to New York state laws, you don't move cemeteries, but we don't know if it's on private property. We'd probably go to the Town of Deerfield Historical Society, see what the status of that is, and maybe we can get, with the property owners, and see, see what's up there.
You've gotten involved with the Erie Canal in a couple different ways. Research because of Patrick Condon. Did he just do labor? Is that?
We believe he was. Did repairs on locks and the off-season type work, because the canal was not open all year long, just as it is now. It's not open. It just opened a few weeks ago.
And when he wasn't working on the canal, he was farming.
He was farming.
What kind of farm did he have?
I believe just a crop farm, and a few, some subsistence farming for himself. I think he made most of his money, working on the canals.
And did he get the rest of his family over here?
All of his immediate family were here. They came with him. His wife, at the time, they had 4 kids, and between the time they left Ireland and the time that he was over here before his passing, they had 7 more.
Oh, okay.
So they had 11 children.
Yeah. And are they also the family? In fact, you had a program the other day that some of his descendants were in attendance. That was kind of exciting, yeah?
Yeah, that was the very first meeting we had with Tony O'Flynn on this. He asked that we asked him, what do you want, how do you want us to help you with your Patrick Condon research? And he said, well, if you can find any of his documents that he may have written, look for this certain Irish language Bible, or come in contact with any of his descendants. That would be a great place to to start with his descendants. That would help him the most. The interesting thing about that is, and we're still doing work on it, but we have a great genealogist working with us on this project, Jerry Reed, and we are coming up with nothing as far as the male line from his children. He only had 4 sons, I believe. No descendants off the male line, but off of his daughter's line. That's where his daughter Elizabeth, those descendants that were there the other night were from her.
Is that the Smith family?
That was a Smith family. And that was kind of tough tracing all those folks because, well, Smith, the name Smith is like Murphy in Ireland.
Yeah, I forget the first person who told me about Patrick Condon was a professor at Mohawk Valley Community College, and his name just escapes me at the moment. And he was in Ireland, and he learned about Patrick Condon, and he came back. I was still at the OD in those days, so I'm guessing it was around the 1980s. And he said, boy, you ought to look into this guy. And he told me where he was buried and some of the background. But when he was in Ireland, he learned about Patrick Condon and the significance of his work.
Yeah, that's 40 years ago. Yeah, so.
Yeah. And the tradition of putting the shamrocks on the grave, you think you might continue that?
We hope so.
Yeah.
if Chris and I are involved in it, that'll still happen.
And talking about you and Chris being involved, you also work for Mother Mary Ann's Westside Kitchen, and you got a lot of canned goods and things for the kitchen this year as a result of the parade, yes?
We did. It was a great year. I don't have those figures off the top of my head, but probably one of the best years we ever had. Because with the other things that we were involved in, as far as the activities go with being grand marshals, we always pushed the canned goods and monetary donations going to Mother Mary Ann's Westside Kitchen.
And I'm sorry for interrupting. And I should also mention the musical group that you're involved with.
Crave Dugan O'Looney. Mm-hmm. It's actually a club.
Mm-hmm. And Jim O'Looney was a friend of mine, and what a great guy he was.
Oh, Jim was a tremendous man.
Yeah.
He was a sweetheart.
Is the group going to be playing anywhere in the near future?
Well, we still play our monthly session the first Wednesday of the month at the Irish Cultural Center, and then we have our another monthly session in Rome at the Copper City Brewery.
And both of those are open to the public?
But they're all open to the public.
Yeah, okay.
And
what else have you got that we need to mention coming up? I guess the big thing is the Lunch and Learn.
the Lunch and Learn, again, it kicks off on the second Wednesday in July 10th at 11 o'clock.
Okay. Do you need to make a reservation for that, or?
We should have reservations, or
Okay.
we'll take walk-ins too.
Okay.
But yeah, it would be great to have reservations. There'll be plenty of a heads-up notification on this in the various publications around the area.
All right. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, continued success. That's going to do it for us this week. We'll do it again next week. Don't forget cnyhomepage.com. There's a lot of good stuff there. Until next time, take care of yourself, everybody.